In this video, I'll show you how to add text behind something. Let's get started. If you'd like to follow along with me, I've left a download link to the photo that I'll be using in the video description. Let's start things off by writing out the text. For this, I'm going to use the Artistic Text tool, and then I'll click and drag, and I'll type something. Now we can adjust how the text looks. To start, I'll grab the Move tool so that the text is fully selected, and then I'll go up here to our fonts. Now for the font, I think something big and bold looks really nice to help it stand out against the background. For this, I think Arial Black looks really nice, or this Anton font. Feel free to go through all of your fonts to see what looks nice for this. Now I'll just change the color. I think white will look really nice. And then another thing we can change is the spacing between the letters. I really like doing this because depending on the font, your all capital letters might look a little different. So to adjust this, just double click so that your cursor is blinking. Then hold down Alt or Option as you use the left and right arrow keys to make the text closer or farther apart. So I'll just go through and make everything a little bit closer. And I think that looks pretty nice. With that finished, I'll grab the Move tool so that I can make this a little bit larger and centered. Okay, for one last adjustment to the text, I want to make sure the text is very easy to read on this background. You can see in this area, especially right here, the text is sort of blending into the sky. So I'm going to add a very subtle drop shadow to this text. To do that, make sure you have your text selected, and then open up the layer effects. I'll click on the outer shadow option. And to make this the most subtle drop shadow ever, here's what I like to do. Raise the radius all the way up. This makes it very soft. And then lower the opacity slider. I think somewhere around 25% looks good for this photo, but feel free to adjust this for whatever photo you're using. Now you can see we have a very subtle drop shadow. Here's the before and the after. Okay, with the text finished, we can go ahead and work on placing the person on top of it. So let's select the photo layer, and then we can duplicate it with Command or Control J. I'll click and drag this layer so that it's on top of everything. And now we're going to cut out the subject so that this layer only has the subject on it. For this, I'm going to use the Object Selection tool. I'll hover over our subject, and I'll click to make a selection. Now, one thing that the Object Selection tool struggles with is objects, and in this case, you can see it didn't really select the backpack. So to add that back in, I'm just going to use the Selection Brush tool, and I'll click and drag with the selection brush to add the backpack. While I'm at it, I may as well go around the entire subject to make sure everything is selected nicely. If you ever select too much, you can hold Alt or Option as you click and drag to remove. So I'll just do this all the way around, making sure everything is selected nicely. Okay, I think we have a pretty good selection, but I'm going to refine it a little bit more by clicking Refine in the context toolbar, and then I'll paint over the edges of his hair. Then I'll press Apply, and now we can go ahead and add a mask. So I'll click on the mask icon, and then I'll deselect with Command or Control D. This looks really good already, but I do want to double check that my mask looks good. I'll just zoom in where our subject overlaps with the letters. And if you see any smudgy areas, go ahead and grab the paintbrush. Make sure you're painting with full flow and 0% hardness in black paint. And then you can go ahead and click and drag to remove any smudgy areas. Or if you want to add areas back in, you can press X on your keyboard to switch to white paint to make sure that everything is fully revealed. I'll press X again to switch to black to remove this little area. And I think this looks pretty nice. As one last tip, now that the subject is separated from the background, we can edit the subject and the background separately. For example, you might want to brighten up your subject, or you might want to darken up the background. For this example, I really want the white letters to stand out, so I'm going to darken just the background. I'll go to the adjustments and I'll apply a curves adjustment, and I'll lower this down to darken it. Since this is beneath our subject layer, you can see this only affects the background. Here's the before and after of that. And with that, we're all finished. Great job! Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next Affinity Revolution tutorial.